The banker's telegram arrived on the hottest day August had seen in Springerville, Arizona, in 20 years. And Lucas Owen knew, before he even opened it, that his father's debts had finally caught up with him. He stood in the dusty yard of the ranch that had belonged to the Owen family for 3 generations, the paper trembling slightly in his calloused hands as he read the words that confirmed his worst fears. The bank in Philadelphia held notes totaling $8,000, all signed by his late father in the desperate final years before consumption had taken him 6 months ago. The land could barely produce half that amount even if Lucas sold every head of cattle, every horse, and the house itself. Lucas was 26 years old, broad-shouldered and sun-weathered, with dark hair that perpetually needed cutting and eyes the color of the Arizona sky just before sunset. He had spent his entire life working this land, had watched his father struggle and fail to make it profitable, and now the legacy of that failure rested squarely on his shoulders. The telegram gave him 3 months to produce payment or face foreclosure. 3 months to save everything his grandfather had built from nothing. He walked to the barn, his boots kicking up small clouds of red dust with each step. Inside, his foreman, Miguel Cortez, was mending tack, his weathered hands working the leather with practiced ease. Miguel had been with the ranch for 15 years, had stayed on even when Lucas could barely afford to pay him. "Bad news?" Miguel asked, not looking up from his work. "The worst." Lucas handed him the telegram. Miguel read it slowly, his lips moving slightly as he worked through the formal language. When he finished, he set it down carefully on the workbench. "What will you do?" "I do not know yet. There is no way to earn that kind of money in 3 months, not honestly." Lucas leaned against a support beam, feeling the weight of generations pressing down on him. "I could try to find work in town, but that would mean leaving the ranch unattended. Could ask the other ranchers for help, but they are all struggling themselves." "You could marry," Miguel suggested carefully. "There are several families in town who would welcome an alliance with the Owen name even with debts." Lucas shook his head firmly. "I will not marry for money. That is no foundation for a life together. Pride is expensive, amigo. It is all I have left." That evening, as Lucas sat on the porch watching the sun paint the distant mountains in shades of orange and purple, he heard the sound of approaching horses. 2 riders came into view, silhouetted against the dying light. As they drew closer, he could see they were well-dressed, their horses fine specimens that had never known hard labor. The first rider was a woman in a dark green traveling dress, sitting her horse with confident ease. The second was an older man, probably in his 50s, with the bearing of a professional servant or secretary. Lucas stood as they reached the porch. The woman dismounted without assistance, moving with a grace that spoke of excellent training. She was perhaps 23 or 24, with auburn hair pulled back in an elaborate arrangement and eyes the color of honey in sunlight. Her dress, though covered in trail dust, was clearly expensive, and she wore it with casual elegance. "Mr. Owen?" she asked, her voice carrying the cultured accent of the eastern cities. "I am Lucas Owen, yes. How can I help you?" "My name is Felicity Lancaster. This is my secretary, Mr. Pemberton. I apologize for arriving unannounced, but I was told in town that you might have rooms available for rent." Lucas blinked in surprise. "I am sorry, miss, but whoever told you that was mistaken. This is a working ranch, not a boarding house." "Oh." Felicity looked genuinely disappointed. "The hotel in town is completely full because of some sort of mining convention, and the proprietor suggested I might find accommodation here. I am willing to pay generously." "There is nothing here suitable for a lady," Lucas said, though he could not help calculating what generous might mean in terms of his debts. The house has not seen a woman's touch in years. I am not particularly delicate, Mr. Owen. I have traveled from Boston by myself, with only Mr. Pemberton for company. I assure you I can manage whatever accommodations you might offer. Lucas studied her more carefully. There was determination in those honey-colored eyes and something else, perhaps a hint of desperation that mirrored his own situation. Against his better judgment, he found himself saying, "I have a spare room. It is clean but basic. If you truly have nowhere else to go, you are welcome to it for the night. Tomorrow you can make other arrangements. Thank you." The relief in her voice was genuine. "I promise we will be no trouble." He showed them inside, suddenly very aware of the state of the house. His father's illness had taken all his energy in those final months, and housekeeping had fallen by the wayside. The furniture was old but sturdy, the floors clean but scarred by years of boot heels. Felicity looked around with interest rather than judgment. "It is a good house," she said. "Solid. Well built. My grandfather built it himself in 1847, right after the war with Mexico ended. You must be very proud of your family's history here." Lucas felt a pang in his chest. "Pride does not pay debts, Miss Lancaster." She gave him a curious look but did not press the matter. He showed her to the spare room, which had been his mother's sewing room before she had died when he was 12. Pemberton carried in her bags several expensive leather cases that probably cost more than everything Lucas owned. "I will have supper ready in an hour if you would care to join me," Lucas said awkwardly. "It will not be fancy." "Whatever you prepare will be most welcome, Mr. Owen. Thank you for your hospitality." Lucas retreated to the kitchen, wondering what he had gotten himself into. He was no cook, but he could manage basic meals. He put together a stew from the provisions in the larder, thick with beef and vegetables, and baked a pan of cornbread. As he worked, he could hear Felicity and Pemberton talking in low voices in the other room. When he called them for supper, Felicity appeared in a simpler dress, her hair still arranged but less elaborately. She had washed the trailed dust from her face, and Lucas was struck again by how pretty she was. He pushed the thought aside firmly. Pretty or not, she was clearly from a different world, one of wealth and privilege that had no place on a failing ranch in Arizona. They ate in an awkward silence for the first few minutes. Finally, Felicity said, "This is very good, Mr. Owen, thank you. Just simple ranch food, miss." "Please call me Felicity. We are sharing your home after all, even if only for one night." "Then you should call me Lucas." He hesitated, then asked, "What brings you to Springerville? We do not get many visitors from Boston." "I inherited property here from my uncle," she explained. "A silver mine about 20 miles north of town. I came to assess its value and determine what to do with it. Silver mines are risky business. So I am learning. The manager my uncle employed seems to think I should simply sign it over to him and return to Boston." He was quite insistent about it. Lucas heard the edge in her voice. "You do not trust him." "I do not trust anyone who tells me I am too delicate and feminine to understand business. My uncle taught me to read contracts and financial statements before I was 15. I may not know mining, but I know when someone is trying to cheat me." Despite himself, Lucas felt a spark of admiration. "What will you do?" "Learn everything I can about the mine and the mining business. Make an informed decision rather than an emotional one." She met his eyes directly. "I assume that seems strange to you, a woman involving herself in such matters." "Not strange," Lucas said honestly. "My mother ran this ranch for 2 years after my grandfather died and before my father was old enough to take over. She kept the books, dealt with the buyers, managed everything. There is nothing delicate about running a ranch or a mine. It all takes the same thing: hard work and good sense. Felicity smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her face from merely pretty to luminous. Your mother sounds like a remarkable woman. She was. She died when I was 12, and my father never quite recovered from losing her. I am sorry. I lost my mother when I was young as well. My father remarried quickly and seemed to forget I existed. My uncle was more of a parent to me than my own father ever was. They talked through the rest of the meal, the conversation flowing more easily as they discovered unexpected common ground. Pemberton excused himself early, clearly exhausted from the journey, but Felicity seemed energized by the discussion. She asked intelligent questions about ranching, and Lucas found himself explaining the challenges he faced without mentioning the specific disaster of his debts. It must be difficult, she said when he finished describing the previous year's drought. Fighting the land and the weather and the market all at once. It is the life I was born to. I cannot imagine doing anything else, even when it seems impossible. I understand that feeling. My uncle left me quite wealthy but also rather trapped. Society expects me to marry well and let my husband manage everything. But I keep thinking there must be more to life than being decorative and obedient. You do not strike me as someone who would excel at obedience, Lucas said, then immediately worried he had been too forward. But Felicity laughed, a warm sound that filled the sparse room. No, I do not suppose I would. My father despairs of me. I have refused 3 marriage proposals in the last year, each from perfectly suitable men. Why did you refuse them? She was quiet for a moment, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup. Because none of them wanted to know what I thought or felt about anything. They wanted a pretty ornament for their homes, someone to host dinners and produce heirs. I kept thinking that marriage should be a partnership, not an acquisition. It should be, Lucas agreed. He found himself wanting to tell her everything about the debts and the foreclosure and his desperate situation, but pride held his tongue. She was a guest in his home, not his confidante. They talked until late in the evening, only parting when Felicity finally admitted she was too tired to keep her eyes open. Lucas showed her back to her room, then returned to the kitchen to clean up. As he washed the dishes in the basin, he tried not to think about how easy it had been to talk to her, how comfortable her presence had felt in his home. Morning came too quickly. Lucas was up before dawn as always, performing his usual chores before breakfast. When he came back to the house, he found Felicity already awake and dressed, standing on the porch watching the sun rise over the mountains. "It is beautiful here," she said as he approached. "So different from Boston. You miss the city, parts of it. But there is something about this land that speaks to me. It feels honest somehow, real." Lucas made breakfast, pancakes and bacon and strong coffee. Pemberton joined them, looking more rested, and after they ate, Felicity broached the subject he had been dreading. "Lucas, I know you said this was only for one night, but I find myself in a difficult position. The mine manager, Mr. Thurston, has made it clear he does not want me staying in town where I might interfere with his operations. The hotel has rooms available now, but I have received suggestions that a woman alone there might face difficulties." "What kind of difficulties?" "The sort that come from men who think a woman traveling alone must be of questionable virtue." Her voice was calm, but Lucas saw anger flash in her eyes. "Mr. Pemberton does his best, but he is a secretary, not a bodyguard." "You should not have to face that kind of treatment," Lucas said firmly. "No, I should not, but the reality remains. I was wondering if you might reconsider allowing us to stay here, just for a few weeks while I assess the mine. I would pay you, of course, quite well." Lucas felt the weight of temptation settle on his shoulders. He needed money desperately, and she was offering it freely. but the idea of taking payment from her for simple hospitality made his stomach turn. "How much are you offering?" he asked, hating himself for the question. "Would $200 for the month be acceptable?" $200. It was more than the ranch earned in a good season. It would not solve his problems, but it would buy him time, perhaps allow him to hire extra help for the fall roundup. He opened his mouth to accept, then stopped himself. "No," he said firmly. Felicity blinked in surprise. "I could go higher if that is not sufficient." "It is not about the amount, Miss Lancaster. Felicity, you are welcome to stay here for as long as you need, but I will not take your money for it." "I do not understand. You clearly need it. This ranch is struggling. Anyone can see that. Why would you refuse?" "Because if I start accepting money from you, it changes what this is. You become a tenant and I become your landlord. That is not right." He struggled to put his feelings into words. "You need help and I can provide it. That should be enough." "That is absurd. You have bills to pay, responsibilities. Taking money for a legitimate service is not charity." "Keep your money," Lucas said, the words coming out more forcefully than he intended. "I mean it. You can stay here, you and Mr. Pemberton both, for as long as you need, but not as paying guests. As friends, if you are willing." Felicity stared at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Finally, she said, "You are either the most honorable man I have ever met or the most foolish." "Probably both," Lucas admitted. "But those are my terms. Take them or leave them." "I will take them," she said quietly. "And I will try to understand this strange Western pride of yours." "It is all I have left," Lucas said, echoing his words to Miguel from the day before. And so Felicity Lancaster moved into the Owen ranch, bringing with her an energy and purpose that transformed the quiet house. She was not content to stay idle while Pemberton handled her business affairs. Instead, she insisted on learning everything about the mine, riding out each day with her secretary to meet with workers and examine the operations. In the evenings, she would return dusty and tired but animated, sharing what she had learned over supper. "Thurston has been selling ore under market value to his brother-in-law's smelting operation," she announced one night, her eyes bright with righteous anger. "I found the receipts hidden in a back room. He has been embezzling thousands of dollars over the past 3 years. What will you do?" Lucas asked. "Confront him tomorrow. Fire him if he cannot provide a satisfactory explanation, which I doubt he can." She bit her lip, a gesture Lucas had learned meant she was worried. "I just hope the mine is still viable after his mismanagement." "You could sell it and return to Boston," Lucas suggested, though the thought of her leaving made his chest tighten uncomfortably. "I could, but that feels like giving up, and I do not give up easily." Lucas understood that sentiment completely. Over the weeks she had been staying with him, he had come to admire Felicity's determination and intelligence. She approached problems with a methodical precision that reminded him of his mother. More than that, he simply enjoyed her company. The evenings they spent talking had become the highlight of his days. He tried not to think about what would happen when her business was concluded and she returned to her own world. Tried not to acknowledge the growing feelings that made his heart race whenever she smiled at him. She was wealthy, educated, from a prominent Boston family. He was a cowboy struggling to hold onto a failing ranch. They existed in different universes that had temporarily aligned but would inevitably separate. One afternoon, about 3 weeks after Felicity had arrived, Lucas was working in the south pasture when Miguel came riding up fast. "We have a problem," the foreman said, breathing hard. "The water hole is nearly dry. Someone has been diverting the stream upstream." Lucas swore under his breath. The water hole was essential for the cattle during the hot months. Without it, they would have to move the herd closer to the ranch house where the grass was already overgrazed. Who? I followed the stream up. It is Carmichael's men. They have built a dam. Reginald Carmichael owned the ranch to the north, a vast operation that dwarfed Lucas's property. He had been trying to buy the Owen ranch for years, making increasingly aggressive offers as Lucas's financial situation deteriorated. "I need to talk to him," Lucas said, already turning his horse toward the north. "Be careful, amigo. Carmichael plays rough." Lucas rode hard, anger building with each mile. He found Carmichael's foreman at the dam site, a crude structure of logs and stones that was backing up water into a large pond. "You need to take this down," Lucas said without preamble. The foreman, a thick-necked man named Bull Garrett, barely glanced at him. "This is Carmichael land. We can do what we want. The stream runs through both properties. You have no right to dam it. Take it up with Mr. Carmichael if you have a problem." Lucas rode directly to Carmichael's ranch house, a sprawling structure that proclaimed its owner's wealth. Carmichael himself met him on the porch, a tall man in his late 50s with silver hair and cold blue eyes. "Owen," he said without warmth, "what brings you here? Your dam. It is cutting off my water supply, my dam on my land, perfectly legal. It affects the downstream flow." "That makes it my business." Carmichael smiled, a predatory expression. "You know, this whole problem would disappear if you would just accept my offer for your ranch. I am prepared to pay fair market value." "The answer is still no. Even with your debts. I know about the Philadelphia bank, Owen. Everyone in town knows. You cannot possibly hope to pay them off." Lucas felt heat rise in his face. "That is my concern. Be reasonable. You are fighting a losing battle. Sell to me now and you will walk away with enough to start over somewhere else. Wait until foreclosure and you will get nothing. The ranch is not for sale. Then enjoy your dry pastures." Carmichael turned to go back inside, then paused. "Oh, and that Eastern lady staying with you, Miss Lancaster. You should be careful about appearances. People talk." Lucas's hands clenched into fists, but he forced himself to stay calm. "There is nothing improper happening. I am sure that is true, but perceptions matter, especially for a lady of her standing. Would be a shame if word got back to her family in Boston that she was living unchaperoned with a cowboy." It was a clear threat, and Lucas recognized it as such. Carmichael was trying to pressure him from multiple angles. "Stay away from her." "I have not gone anywhere near her. I am simply pointing out reality. Now, if you will excuse me, I have business to attend to." Lucas rode back to his ranch in a black mood. The sun was setting when he arrived, painting everything in shades of red and gold that he was too upset to appreciate. He found Felicity on the porch, reading a book in the fading light. "You look like you want to hit something," she observed. He told her about the dam and his confrontation with Carmichael. She listened carefully, her expression growing serious. "He is trying to force you to sell," she said when he finished. "I know, but I will not give in. Even if it means losing everything, even then. This ranch is my family's legacy. I will not surrender it to a bully." Felicity was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "What if I lent you the money to pay off your debts?" Lucas felt as if she had struck him. "What? I have the money, Lucas, more than enough. I could write you a note right now for the full amount." "No." The word came out harsh, almost angry. "Why not?" "It would solve your problem. Because I already owe more than my land could ever earn. Taking on more debt, especially from you, would not fix anything. It would just transfer the problem. It would not be like that. I would not expect repayment on any particular schedule. You could pay me back whenever you were able or not at all if circumstances did not allow. Which would make it charity, not a loan." Lucas stood up, too agitated to sit still. I appreciate the offer, Felicity, truly, but I cannot accept. Your pride is going to cost you everything you care about. Then that is my choice to make. They stared at each other, both breathing hard. Finally, Felicity said softly, I am sorry, I should not have pushed, but I hate watching you suffer when I could help. Why? Lucas asked, the question that had been building for weeks finally bursting out. Why do you care what happens to me? Because you are a good man, and good men are rare. Because you showed me kindness when you had no obligation to do so. Because when I am here with you, I feel like I matter for who I am, not what I own or who my family is. The honesty in her voice made Lucas's anger evaporate. He sat back down, suddenly exhausted. I am sorry for shouting. It has been a difficult day. I know. And I should not have tried to solve your problems with money. That was insensitive. They sat in silence for a while, watching the last light fade from the sky. Finally, Lucas said, Carmichael threatened you, said he might spread rumors about you staying here unchaperoned. Let him. I do not care what small-minded people think, but I do. I will not have your reputation damaged because of me. Maybe you should move to the hotel after all. No. Felicity's voice was firm. I will not be driven away by threats and gossip. Besides, Pemberton provides sufficient chaperoning. Anyone who suggests otherwise is simply looking for scandal where none exists. You are certain? I am. She reached over and took his hand, a gesture so natural and yet so significant that it made Lucas's breath catch. I am not going anywhere, Lucas Owen, not until I am ready. Her hand was warm in his, soft but with calluses forming from her work at the mine. Lucas knew he should pull away, should maintain the proper distance between them. Instead, he found himself holding on, drawing comfort from the connection. The next morning, Lucas rode out to survey the damage from Carmichael's dam. The water hole was indeed running low, the muddy bottom starting to show in places. His cattle were restless, sensing the scarcity. He needed to solve this problem quickly, but legal action would take time he did not have and money he could not spare. He was contemplating his limited options when he heard horses approaching. Looking up, he saw a group of riders coming across the range. As they got closer, he recognized several neighboring ranchers. Tom Hastings, whose spread adjoined his to the east. Sarah Chen, who ran a small but successful cattle operation with her sons. And old Ezekiel Grant, who had ranched in the territory since before Arizona was even a territory. Heard you were having trouble with Carmichael, Tom said without preamble. Word travels fast. Small community. We look out for each other. Sarah gestured toward the water hole. He is diverting your water, built a dam upstream on his property. Ezekiel spat tobacco juice onto the ground. That is illegal. Riparian rights protect downstream users. Try telling that to Carmichael. He has lawyers and money, I have neither. You have friends, Sarah said firmly. We all know what he is doing. First he squeezes you out, then he starts on the rest of us. We need to stand together. What are you proposing? We pool resources, Tom explained. Hire a good lawyer in Tucson to file an injunction. Share the costs among all of us. I cannot afford even a share of those costs right now, Lucas admitted, hating how the words tasted. Then we cover your portion, Sarah said. You can pay us back when you are able. Lucas felt the familiar pride rising up, the instinct to refuse help. But this was different from Felicity's offer. These were his peers, ranchers who understood his situation because they lived it themselves. This was community, not charity. I would be grateful for that, he said carefully, but I want it understood that I will repay every cent. Understood, Ezekiel said. Now, in the meantime, we need a temporary solution. My nephew is studying engineering at the university. He is visiting next week. I will have him come take a look. See if we can redirect some water from my spring to supplement yours until this is legally resolved." They spent the next hour working out details. By the time his neighbors rode away, Lucas felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He was not alone in this fight. The realization was both humbling and empowering. When he returned to the ranch house that evening, he found Felicity in the kitchen, attempting to cook dinner. The results were mixed at best. Smoke was pouring from the oven, and she was staring at a pot of something that might have once been beans with consternation. "I thought I would try to help," she said sheepishly. "But apparently reading recipes and actually cooking are very different skills." Lucas could not help but laugh. He opened the windows to clear the smoke and investigated the disasters. "What were you trying to make?" "Roast chicken and beans and biscuits. I can manage tea and toast in Boston, but this Western cooking is beyond me. Here, let me show you." He rescued what could be saved and started fresh where necessary, talking her through each step. Felicity watched with intense concentration, asking questions and taking mental notes. "Why are you doing this?" he asked as they worked side by side. "You have Pemberton. You could ask him to handle meals." "Because I want to learn. Because in Boston I would never be allowed in the kitchen. That was servants' work. But here, cooking is just another skill like reading financial reports or riding a horse. I want to be useful." "You are useful. You run a silver mine." "I run a silver mine badly from what I am learning." Thurston did not just embezzle. He deferred maintenance, cut corners on safety, drove away the best workers with his arrogance. It will take months to undo the damage, maybe years. "Will you stay that long?" Lucas asked, trying to keep his voice casual. Felicity was quiet for a moment, focused on stirring the beans the way he had showed her. "I do not know. I have been thinking about it. Boston feels like someone else's life now. My father will be furious if I do not return soon. He has another suitable husband lined up, a banker's son. Do you want to marry him? I have never even met him. But that does not matter to my father. He sees me as a piece in his social chess game." "What do you want?" She looked up at him, her honey-colored eyes serious. "I want what you have. Purpose. A place where I belong. Work that matters. You could have all that in Boston if you wanted it." "No, I could not. Not as a woman. I would always be someone's daughter or someone's wife, never myself." She turned back to the beans, her voice dropping. "Here, people judge me by what I do, not who my family is. At the mine, the workers respect me because I listen to them and make good decisions. In town, the shopkeepers treat me fairly because I pay my bills promptly and do not put on airs. For the first time in my life, I feel like a real person." Lucas understood exactly what she meant. Boston will still be there if you decide to go back. That is true. But this life will not wait. The mine needs attention now, and I find I am not ready to leave. She did not say what else might be keeping her in Arizona, but Lucas saw it in the way her eyes met his, in the small smile that played at her lips. The knowledge made his heart race and his thoughts scatter. They finished cooking together, salvaging a decent meal from Felicity's initial disaster. Over supper, Lucas told her about his neighbor's offer to help with the legal fight against Carmichael. "That is wonderful," she said. "See, you do not have to face everything alone." "I am beginning to understand that, though it does not come naturally to me. Accepting help is harder than giving it, I think. It requires admitting vulnerability." "Is that why you will not return to Boston? To avoid appearing vulnerable to your father?" Felicity considered the question seriously. "Partly, perhaps. But mostly because going back would mean admitting he was right, that I cannot manage on my own. I need to prove to myself that I can do this, even if it is difficult." "I understand that feeling." They smiled at each other across the table, a moment of perfect understanding. Lucas felt the connection between them growing stronger each day, an invisible thread pulling them closer. He knew he was falling in love with her, had probably been falling since that first evening when she had challenged his assumptions with such confidence. But he also knew the vast gulf between their circumstances. Even if he saved the ranch, even if he overcame all his financial troubles, he would still be a cowboy from Arizona. She would still be an heiress from Boston. Those worlds did not merge, no matter how much he might wish otherwise. The legal proceedings against Carmichael moved forward slowly. The lawyer Sarah and the others hired was competent but cautious, building a careful case based on riparian law and territorial statutes. In the meantime, Ezekiel's nephew managed to engineer a temporary water diversion that kept Lucas's cattle supplied, though just barely. Felicity threw herself into reforming the mine operations. She fired Thurston and promoted his assistant, a quiet man named James Morrison, who had been silently documenting Thurston's abuses for months. She brought in safety inspectors from Tucson and began implementing their recommendations, spending money that made Pemberton nervous but that Felicity insisted was necessary. "If a man dies because I cut corners, I will never forgive myself," she told Lucas one evening. "Profit is not worth human lives. The workers appreciate it. I heard them talking in town. They say you are the best owner the mine has ever had." She flushed with pleasure at the compliment. "I am trying, though I still have so much to learn." Lucas found himself looking forward to their evenings together with an intensity that should have alarmed him. They had fallen into comfortable routines, cooking together, talking over supper, sitting on the porch as the desert cooled and the stars emerged in their thousands. Sometimes they discussed serious matters, the challenges they each faced. Other times they simply shared stories from their pasts, learning each other's histories. Felicity told him about growing up in Boston society, the endless rules and restrictions that governed every aspect of her life. About her mother's death when she was 8 and her father's quick remarriage to a woman who viewed Felicity as an inconvenience. About her uncle, her mother's brother, who had been the one stable presence in her childhood. "He never married," she said. "Said he was too cantankerous to inflict himself on any poor woman. But he was kind to me in ways my own father never was. He listened when I talked. He answered my questions instead of telling me not to worry my pretty head about things. When he died last year, I felt like I had lost the only person who truly understood me. He sounds like a remarkable man. He was. And he left me everything specifically because he knew my father would try to control it if he could. The mine, the money, all of it. He wanted me to have choices." Lucas shared his own history. Growing up on the ranch, losing his mother young, watching his father slowly give up after her death. The long, hard years of trying to keep everything together while his father sank into debt and depression. The final terrible months of his father's illness, when Lucas had nursed him while trying to run the ranch and had succeeded at neither. "He was not a bad man," Lucas said. "Just a broken one. He loved my mother so much that he could not figure out how to live without her." "I understand that feeling now." The words hung in the air between them. Felicity looked at him and he saw understanding in her eyes and something more, something that made his pulse quicken. "Lucas," she began, then stopped. "Yes. Nothing, I just like saying your name." It was a simple statement, but it carried weight. Lucas reached for her hand and she did not pull away. They sat there in the darkness, fingers intertwined, not speaking. Words seemed inadequate for what was building between them. The moment was broken by Pemberton's polite cough from the doorway. "Miss Lancaster, I apologize for the interruption, but there is a matter requiring your attention." Felicity withdrew her hand reluctantly. "What is it?" "A telegram from your father. He is demanding your immediate return to Boston." She sighed. "Of course he is. Tell him I will respond in the morning." After Pemberton left, Felicity turned back to Lucas. "I suppose I cannot avoid this forever. What will you tell him? The truth. That I am staying until I am satisfied the mine is properly managed, that I am an adult who can make her own decisions." "He will not like that." "No, but he will have to accept it." She stood, preparing to go inside. "Lucas, what we have here, these evenings together, they mean something to me." "They mean something to me too," he admitted. "Good, I needed to know that." She hesitated, then leaned down and kissed his cheek, a brief touch that sent electricity through him. "Good night, Lucas." He sat on the porch long after she had gone inside, his hand touching the place her lips had been, his mind racing. Everything was becoming complicated in ways he had not anticipated. His feelings for Felicity were no longer something he could dismiss or ignore. They were real and growing stronger, and he had no idea what to do about them. The situation with Carmichael came to a head 2 weeks later. The lawyer obtained a preliminary injunction forcing the removal of the dam while the case proceeded through the courts. Carmichael, furious at the setback, showed up at Lucas's ranch with 6 of his men. Lucas was in the barn when they arrived. He heard the horses and came out to find Carmichael dismounting, his face red with anger. "You think you are clever, Owen, getting the other ranchers to help you. I think I am protecting what is mine, same as you would. The difference is, I have the strength to take what I want. You are weak, living on borrowed time. That Eastern woman's money will not save you. Leave her out of this." "Why?" "Because you have developed feelings for her. Everyone can see it the way you look at her. Does she know about your debts? Does she know you are one bad month from losing everything?" "My finances are none of your concern." "They become my concern when they affect my plans. I want this land, Owen. I have wanted it for years, and I will have it one way or another." Lucas felt his temper rising but forced himself to stay calm. "The law is on my side regarding the water, and I will find a way to deal with my other problems." "Will you?" Carmichael moved closer, his voice dropping. "Because I have another offer for you. Sell to me now, today, and I will pay enough to clear your debts and give you a fresh start. Refuse, and I will make sure you lose everything. The bank in Philadelphia, I have connections there. One word from me and they will accelerate the foreclosure. You would not even get your 3 months. It was extortion, plain and simple. Lucas's hands clenched into fists. "Get off my land." "Think about it, Owen. Think hard." "You have until the end of the week." Carmichael and his men rode away, leaving Lucas shaking with suppressed rage. He knew the threat was real. Men like Carmichael had long reaches and few scruples about using their influence. He was still standing in the yard when Felicity came riding up from the direction of the mine. She took one look at his face and swung down from her horse. "What happened?" He told her everything, including Carmichael's threat about the bank. She listened with increasing anger, her eyes flashing. "He cannot do that. It is illegal, immoral, and unconscionable. But he probably can do it, legal or not. He has the connections and the money to make my life hell. Then we fight him. We find a way to pay off the bank before he can interfere. With what money, Felicity? I have explained this. The ranch cannot generate that kind of income. Then we get creative. We leverage the mine, or we bring in investors, or we find another solution, but we do not surrender to bullies." "You keep saying we," Lucas said quietly. Felicity met his eyes directly. "Yes, I do. Because whether you like it or not, I am invested in your success. I care what happens to you and this ranch." "Why?" The question again, more desperate this time. "Because I love you," she said simply. "I have loved you for weeks now, probably since that first night when you refused my money, because taking it would change what we were to each other. I love your pride and your stubbornness and your absolute refusal to compromise your principles, even when it would be easier. I love the way you care for this land and honor your family's legacy. I love who I am when I am with you." Lucas felt as if the ground had shifted beneath him. "Felicity, you cannot love me. I am a cowboy with nothing to offer you. You deserve someone from your own world, someone who can give you the life you are accustomed to." "I do not want that life. I want this one. I want to wake up to Arizona sunrises and work hard at something meaningful and come home to someone who sees me as an equal partner." She moved closer to him. "I want you, Lucas Owen, exactly as you are." "I love you too," he said, the words bursting out. "I have been trying to protect both of us from the inevitable hurt when you leave, but I cannot help it. You have become everything to me." "Then stop trying to protect me from my own choices. Let me help you. Let me be your partner in this fight. I cannot take your money. You know I cannot. Then do not think of it as my money. Think of it as our money. Marry me, Lucas. Make me your wife, and what is mine becomes yours legally and morally. Let us face these challenges together." Lucas stared at her, unable to believe what he was hearing. "You are proposing to me. I suppose I am. Not very romantic, doing it in a dusty ranch yard while you are covered in barn dirt. But I mean it with all my heart. Felicity, you cannot just marry me to solve my financial problems. That is not a foundation for a marriage. I am not marrying you for your problems. I am marrying you because I love you and want to spend my life with you. The fact that it would also allow me to help you save your ranch is simply a fortunate coincidence. What about your father? Your life in Boston? I have been thinking about that. I can manage the mine from here. I can build a life here. My father will be angry, but he will recover, and if he does not, that is his choice, not mine." Lucas wanted to say yes more than he had ever wanted anything, but doubt gnawed at him. What if you regret it? What if you wake up one day and realize you gave up everything for a struggling ranch and a stubborn cowboy? What if I do not? What if this is exactly what I am meant to do, and you are exactly who I am meant to be with? She took his hands in hers. "I am not asking you to take advantage of me, Lucas. I am asking you to take a chance on us, on the possibility that what we have is real and worth fighting for." He looked into her honey-colored eyes and saw absolute certainty. She knew what she wanted, and she was choosing him. The realization was both humbling and exhilarating. "Yes," he said. "Yes, I will marry you, not because I need your money, but because I need you, because I cannot imagine my life without you in it anymore." Felicity smiled, that luminous expression that transformed her whole face. Then she stood on her toes and kissed him, really kissed him, and Lucas forgot about debts and threats and pride. There was only her, the woman he loved, choosing him despite everything. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Felicity laughed. "We are really doing this." "I suppose we are, though I should probably have proposed properly with a ring and on my knee." "You can do that later. Right now, we have practical matters to attend to. We need to get married quickly, before Carmichael can make good on his threats. There is a minister in town, Reverend Cooper. He could marry us tomorrow if we get the license today. Then let us go get it now." They rode into Springerville together, causing quite a stir when they applied for a marriage license. The clerk, a gossipy woman named Mrs. Henderson, could barely contain her excitement. "Miss Lancaster and Mr. Owen. My goodness, this is unexpected. When is the happy day?" "Tomorrow," Felicity said firmly. "Can you have the license ready this afternoon?" "Tomorrow." "But surely you want time to plan, to invite people, to arrange for a proper wedding. We want to be married quickly and without fuss. Can you prepare the license or not?" Mrs. Henderson's eyes gleamed with curiosity, but she nodded. "Come back in 2 hours. It will be ready." They spent the intervening time purchasing necessities and spreading the word. Lucas invited Miguel and a few close friends. Felicity sent Pemberton to fetch the mine workers who had become her friends. By evening, word had spread through the small town that there would be a wedding the next day. That night, Lucas lay awake in his bed, unable to believe how quickly everything had changed. Tomorrow he would marry Felicity Lancaster, the woman he loved. Together they would face Carmichael and the bank and whatever other challenges arose. For the first time in months, he felt hope. The wedding took place at noon in the small church at the edge of town. Reverend Cooper, a jovial man in his 60s who had known Lucas since childhood, beamed throughout the brief ceremony. Felicity wore a simple blue dress that brought out the color of her eyes. Lucas had borrowed a suit from Tom Hastings, who was close to his size. As they stood before the Reverend, exchanging vows, Lucas felt the rightness of it settle into his bones. This was not about money or convenience. This was about two people choosing to face life together, to build something meaningful from their combined strengths. I, Lucas Owen, take you, Felicity Lancaster, to be my lawfully wedded wife. I promise to honor you, respect you, and stand by you through whatever challenges we face. I promise to see you as my equal partner and to never let pride come between us. I promise to love you all the days of my life. Felicity's eyes shone with tears as she made her own vows. I, Felicity Lancaster, take you, Lucas Owen, to be my lawfully wedded husband. I promise to honor your heritage and the land you love. I promise to work beside you and support your dreams. I promise to challenge you when you need it and comfort you when you hurt. I promise to love you all the days of my life. They had no rings, but it did not matter. When Reverend Cooper pronounced them husband and wife and told Lucas he could kiss his bride, the kiss they shared was worth more than any amount of gold. The small gathering cheered. Miguel clapped Lucas on the back, grinning broadly. About time, amigo. I knew from the first day she arrived that she was special. Sarah Chen hugged Felicity fiercely. Welcome to the community. We take care of our own. Even Ezekiel Grant cracked a smile. You got yourself a good woman, Owen. Do not screw it up. They held a simple reception at the ranch. The house suddenly full of laughter and music and life. Someone had brought a fiddle, and dancing broke out in the yard as the sun set. Lucas held Felicity in his arms as they swayed to the music, overwhelmed by how much had changed in such a short time. Are you happy? He asked her. Happier than I ever thought possible, she replied. Are you having second thoughts? Not even for a moment, though we still have to face Carmichael and the bank. Tomorrow, tonight, let us just enjoy being married. So they did, celebrating with their friends until late in the evening. When everyone finally left and the house grew quiet, Lucas and Felicity stood together in the kitchen, suddenly shy with each other. I suppose we are really married now, Lucas said. I suppose we are, Felicity smiled. It is strange, is it not? Everything has changed and yet nothing has changed. I still love you, you still love me, we are just official now. Official makes it real. It was already real. Lucas pulled her close, kissing her properly for the first time as his wife. When they finally made their way to the bedroom they would now share, he felt a completeness he had never experienced before. This was what had been missing from his life: partnership, companionship, love. The next morning, they began the practical work of combining their lives. Felicity insisted on immediately transferring funds to pay off the Philadelphia bank, drafting a wire transfer that made Lucas's head spin with its casual expenditure of thousands of dollars. You are certain about this? He asked one more time. Completely certain. This ranch is our future now. I want it secure. She signed the transfer with a flourish. There, done, no more debts hanging over us. The relief was so intense that Lucas had to sit down. For months, the weight of those debts had pressed on him every waking moment. Now, with a few strokes of a pen, they were gone. "I will pay you back," he promised. "Every cent. It might take years, but I will do it. Lucas, we are married now. My money is your money and vice versa. There is no paying back between husband and wife. There is only building our future together." It took him time to accept that concept, to truly internalize that he was no longer alone in his struggles. But Felicity was patient, gently redirecting him whenever he fell back into old patterns of stubborn independence. With the immediate crisis resolved, they turned their attention to improving both the ranch and the mine. Felicity's business acumen combined with Lucas's practical knowledge of ranching created a powerful synergy. They developed a plan to diversify the ranch's income, adding horse breeding to the cattle operation. The mine, under Morrison's competent management and Felicity's careful oversight, began to turn a real profit for the first time in years. Carmichael, furious at being outmaneuvered, tried several more attempts to cause trouble. He challenged the legality of their marriage, claiming Felicity had been coerced. He spread rumors about impropriety. He even tried to bribe Morrison to sabotage the mine operations, but each attempt failed. The community had rallied around Lucas and Felicity, seeing in their partnership something worth protecting. When Carmichael's schemes became too aggressive, the other ranchers and townspeople pushed back hard enough that he finally retreated, focusing his energies elsewhere. The legal case over the water rights concluded 6 months after the wedding, with a decisive victory for Lucas and the other ranchers. The judge issued a permanent injunction against damming the stream and awarded damages for the temporary interference. It was not a huge sum, but it sent a clear message that Carmichael's bullying would not be tolerated. Life settled into new rhythms. Lucas and Felicity worked side by side, managing the ranch and mine with equal partnership. They learned each other's strengths and weaknesses, developed their own systems and routines. Some days they argued, their strong personalities clashing over the best approach to a problem. But they always worked through it, their love providing a foundation strong enough to weather disagreements. Felicity's father eventually came to Arizona, determined to drag his daughter back to Boston. He arrived in a fury, prepared to deploy every argument and guilt trip in his arsenal. But when he saw Felicity in her element, managing the mine and ranch with confident competence, something in his rigid worldview shifted. Lucas would never forget the evening the elder Lancaster sat on their porch, drinking whiskey and watching the sunset paint the mountains. "She is happy here," he said finally, the words dragged out reluctantly. "I can see that. Yes, sir, she is. I always thought happiness was something you achieved through proper marriage and social position. I never imagined she would find it in the Arizona desert married to a cowboy." He said it without malice, just observation. "I thank God every day that she chose me," Lucas said honestly. Lancaster was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "You take care of her, Owen. She is all I have left of her mother." "I will protect her with my life, sir." "But she does not need much protecting. Your daughter is the strongest person I know." A small smile crossed Lancaster's face. "Yes, she is. Gets that from her mother." He stood, preparing to go inside. "I will not lie and say I approve of all her choices, but I can see that she has made a life here. I suppose that will have to be enough." It was not a warm reconciliation, but it was acceptance. When Lancaster left a week later, he shook Lucas's hand and told Felicity he would write. It was more than either of them had expected. The years flowed forward, each bringing new challenges and triumphs. The ranch prospered under their joint management, the horse breeding program becoming particularly successful. The mine continued to produce steady income, allowing them to invest in improvements and expansions. They became pillars of the Springerville community, known for their fairness and generosity. 3 years after their wedding, Felicity gave birth to their first child, a son they named William after Lucas's grandfather. Lucas held his son for the first time in the same room where he had been born, overwhelmed by the weight of legacy and responsibility. "He is perfect," Felicity said, exhausted but glowing. "He is," Lucas agreed, marveling at the tiny fingers wrapped around his thumb. "Thank you for giving me this." "We gave each other this. All of it." 2 years later, a daughter arrived, named Alina after Felicity's mother. She came into the world screaming with outrage and never quite stopped expressing her opinions. From the beginning, she was fierce and determined, reminding Lucas so much of Felicity that it made his heart ache. The children grew up on the ranch, learning to ride almost before they could walk. William had his father's quiet determination, while Alina inherited her mother's sharp mind and unwillingness to accept limitations. They worked alongside their parents, understanding from an early age that the ranch was not just their home but their heritage. Miguel, who had stayed on as foreman and become like family, taught William the finer points of cattle handling. Sarah Chen's daughter became Alina's closest friend, the two girls causing benign havoc throughout the community. Ezekiel Grant, growing old but still sharp, loved to tell the children stories about the early days of the territory. Lucas and Felicity's marriage deepened over the years, the early passion settling into something even stronger, true partnership and enduring love. They still argued occasionally, both too stubborn to always agree, but they had learned to fight fair and make up thoroughly. One evening, 15 years after their wedding, they sat on the porch watching William and Alina help Miguel move cattle to a new pasture. The ranch had expanded significantly, now one of the most successful operations in the territory. The mine had eventually played out, but they had sold it at the right time, investing the proceeds wisely. "You ever regret it?" Lucas asked. "Giving up Boston for this?" Felicity laughed. "You ask me that at least once a year, and my answer never changes, not for a single moment. This life, this family, everything we built together is worth more than all the society balls and proper marriages in the world. I just want to make sure you are happy. I am sublimely happy." "Are you?" "More than I ever imagined possible." He took her hand, the gesture as natural now as breathing. "When you arrived that day, lost and needing a place to stay, I thought you were just passing through my life. I never dreamed you would become my whole world." "I was never lost," Felicity said. "I was finding my way home. I just did not know it yet." They watched their children work, the next generation learning the land and the legacy. The sun set in its familiar glory, painting the desert in colors that never quite stopped taking Lucas's breath away. "What are you thinking about?" Felicity asked. "How that day when I got the telegram about the debts, I thought my life was over. I was drowning in problems with no solutions. And then you arrived and everything changed. You changed it. You could have taken my money that first day and solved all your immediate problems. But you refused because your principles mattered more than convenience. That is what made me fall in love with you. I was a fool. I should have accepted your help. No, you were honorable. There is a difference." She squeezed his hand. "And in the end, we found a way forward together. That is what marriage is, I think, finding ways forward together." Lucas pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. 15 years, and he still felt that rush of love every time he touched her. "Thank you for not giving up on me, for pushing past my stubborn pride and insisting we could build something together. Thank you for letting me, for seeing me as a partner instead of just a source of funding, for loving me for who I am, not what I own." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the day fade into evening. In the distance, they could hear William and Alina laughing at something Miguel had said. The sound of their children's joy was the sweetest music Lucas had ever heard. "I want more nights like this," he said. "Thousands more sitting here with you watching our family grow." "Then that is what we will have," Felicity replied. "We have built something strong, Lucas, something that will last. The ranch, the family, our love, all of it. We built it together and it will endure." She was right, Lucas knew. They had taken the broken pieces of their separate lives and forged something whole and beautiful. A stubborn cowboy who owed more than his land could earn, and a wealthy woman from Boston who saw past the debts to the man beneath. They should never have worked, should never have even met. But fate had brought them together, and love had made them inseparable. The years continued to unfold, bringing the usual mix of joy and sorrow. Ezekiel Grant passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 89. Leaving his ranch to his nephew with instructions that the Owens be given first right of refusal if the family ever wanted to sell. Miguel's hair turned silver, but he refused to retire, claiming he would work until the day he died. Sarah Chen's cattle operation merged with theirs, creating an even larger enterprise that could better weather market fluctuations. They brought in modern techniques while respecting traditional methods, always looking for the balance between progress and preservation. William grew into a capable young man, serious and thoughtful. At 21, he married the daughter of a neighboring rancher, a practical woman named Anna who fit seamlessly into the Owen family. Alina, true to her nature, chose a different path. She went to the university in Tucson to study law, determined to fight for justice in the territory. Lucas worried about her, but Felicity just laughed. "She is exactly like you," she told him. "Stubborn and determined and unwilling to accept injustice. How can you disapprove of that?" "I do not disapprove, I just worry she will be fine. She is an Owen, we are survivors." Alina did indeed thrive, becoming one of the first female lawyers in Arizona. She came home regularly, filling the house with her energy and her stories of courtroom battles. She never married, claiming she was too busy changing the world to settle down. Lucas suspected there was more to it than that, but he respected her privacy. William and Anna gave them grandchildren, 3 boys and 2 girls who ran wild on the ranch just as their father had. Lucas taught them to ride, to respect the land, to understand that privilege came with responsibility. Felicity told them stories about Boston and the world beyond Arizona, making sure they understood there were many ways to live a good life. On their 25th wedding anniversary, the entire family gathered at the ranch for a celebration. The house overflowed with people and noise and love. Lucas, watching it all from his usual spot on the porch, felt overwhelmed by gratitude. Felicity found him there, slipping her hand into his. Her hair was streaked with silver now, and fine lines marked the corners of her eyes. To Lucas, she had never been more beautiful. "Happy anniversary, husband." "Happy anniversary, wife." He pulled her down to sit beside him. 25 years. It feels like both forever and no time at all." "I know exactly what you mean." She rested her head on his shoulder. "Do you remember how terrified we both were? Me proposing to you in the ranch yard, you convinced I would regret choosing you. I still sometimes wonder if you regret it." Lucas Owen, after 25 years and 2 children and 3 grandchildren and countless adventures, if you still doubt that I chose exactly the life I wanted, then I have failed as a wife, he laughed. "You have not failed at anything. I am just amazed by my good fortune." "It was not fortune. It was choice. We chose each other and we chose to build this life together. Every single day we made that choice again. Inside, someone started playing the piano. Music drifted out to the porch, a waltz that Lucas recognized as the song they had danced to at their wedding. "Dance with me," he said, standing and offering his hand. "Here, now, why not? We are married. We can dance wherever we want." Felicity laughed and took his hand, letting him pull her into his arms. They swayed together on the porch, the same porch where they had spent so many evenings talking and dreaming and planning. The music wrapped around them, and for a moment they were young again, full of hope and possibility. The years continued their steady march. Lucas's hair turned white, and his joints complained on cold mornings. Felicity developed a slight limp from an old riding injury that had never quite healed properly. But they remained active, still involved in managing the ranch, still partners in every sense of the word. When Lucas turned 65, William suggested gently that perhaps it was time to think about stepping back, letting the younger generation take over the day-to-day operations. "I am not dead yet, son," Lucas protested. "No one is saying you are, father. But you and mother have been working this ranch for 40 years. You have earned some rest." Lucas looked at Felicity, who shrugged. "He has a point. We could travel, see some of the country we have never had time to visit. Let William and Anna handle the daily operations while we advise and enjoy our grandchildren." The idea of slowing down went against every instinct Lucas had, but he also recognized the wisdom in it. William was more than capable, had proven himself 1,000 times over. It was time to trust the next generation. "All right," he agreed, "but I am not going to sit around doing nothing. I will still ride out when I want, still help with roundups, still have a say in major decisions." "We would not expect anything less," William said, smiling. So they stepped back, not retiring completely, but allowing themselves to enjoy the fruits of their labor. They took a trip to San Francisco, staying in a grand hotel and marveling at the ocean. They visited Alina in Tucson, watching her argue a case before the territorial Supreme Court with fierce eloquence. But they always came home to the ranch, to the land that had been the foundation of their partnership. This was where they belonged, where their roots ran deep into the red Arizona soil. On a warm spring evening, 42 years after Felicity had first ridden up to the ranch looking for a room, Lucas found her in the garden she had planted decades ago. She was deadheading roses, her movements slow but sure. "The sunset is particularly beautiful tonight," he said. "Thought you might want to watch it from the porch. I would love that." They walked together, his arm around her waist, her hand on his arm. The years had changed them, weathered them like the landscape around them. But the core of what they were to each other remained unchanged. As they settled into their familiar spots, William and Anna rode in from the range, their eldest son beside them. The boy was 15 now, already showing signs of the capable rancher he would become. Another generation, Lucas thought, learning the land and the legacy. "What are you thinking?" Felicity asked. "That we did it. We took a failing ranch and impossible debts and built something lasting. We created a family and a legacy that will continue long after we are gone." "We did," she agreed. "Not bad for a stubborn cowboy and an Eastern heiress who did not know her place." Lucas laughed. "Your place was always here beside me. It just took you coming all the way from Boston to find it. And it took you nearly refusing my help to realize that accepting it was not weakness but wisdom. I was an idiot. You were proud. There is a difference." She took his hand, her grip still strong despite the arthritis that plagued her fingers. "But you learned. We both did. That is what marriage is, I think. Learning to be better together than we could ever be apart." The sun continued its descent, the sky turning brilliant shades of orange and pink and purple. They had watched thousands of sunsets from this porch, and Lucas never tired of them. Each one was a gift, a reminder of beauty in a world that could be harsh. "I love you," he said, the words as true now as they had been 42 years ago. "I have loved you from the moment you looked at me with those honey-colored eyes and told me you were not particularly delicate. I love you too, my stubborn, honorable, wonderful husband. Thank you for giving me a life beyond my wildest dreams. Thank you for insisting on sharing it with me, even when I tried to push you away." They sat in comfortable silence, hands clasped, hearts beating in familiar rhythm. Behind them, the house buzzed with family life. Before them, the land stretched out in all its rough beauty. This was home. This was legacy. This was love that had been tested and proven stronger than any challenge. As the last light faded from the sky and the first stars emerged, Lucas felt complete peace. Whatever came next, whatever challenges the future held, the foundation they had built would endure. Their children knew the value of hard work and partnership. Their grandchildren understood that family and land were worth fighting for. The ranch that had nearly been lost was now secure for generations to come. "Ready to go inside?" Felicity asked as the evening grew cool. "In a minute. I want to remember this exactly as it is. You, me, the sunset, the ranch, everything perfect." "It is not perfect," Felicity said gently, "but it is ours, and that makes it better than perfect." Lucas pulled her close, kissing her temple. "You are right, as always. It is better than perfect. It is real." They sat a few moments longer, savoring the quiet and the closeness. Then, together, they rose and walked into the house, into the warmth and noise and love of the family they had created. Behind them, the Arizona night settled over the land, stars blazing in their countless numbers, the same stars that had witnessed their first meeting and every day since. The ranch that Lucas thought he would lose had become the foundation of a dynasty. The debts that nearly destroyed him had led him to the greatest wealth he would ever know. A true partnership with a remarkable woman. And the pride that almost made him refuse help had transformed into the wisdom to accept that love meant being vulnerable, being willing to lean on someone else. It was a story that would be told for generations, passed down through the Owen family as a reminder that sometimes the greatest blessings come disguised as the worst disasters. That love can bridge any gap if both people are willing to meet in the middle. That partnership built on respect and trust and genuine affection is stronger than any adversity. And every time a new generation gathered on that porch to watch the sunset, they would remember Lucas and Felicity, the cowboy and the heiress who proved that, when two stubborn hearts refuse to give up on each other, they can build something that lasts forever.